This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. If you are planning to redo your living space, this is for you today. She's a planner. She plans designs as an amazing interior designer, but we're talking about the planning today, and even specifically how much time you should allot. Let's say you got a big event coming up in the spring. You want to do a renovation on your home to accommodate maybe more people for that event. How much should you plan in advance? We're going to start there today with our professional of the year. She is the person behind a great interior design company called Tab, T-A-B. Trish Bonney, back on the program. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Really good. Really good. Planning's everything, isn't it? Like everything, you wake up, your eyes open for the first second of the day. You usually are planning what you're going to do even in that day, right?
Right. Yeah. And like anything, the more time you allow yourself to plan, the better it will go, not only stress-wise, but just in every single aspect in construction or remodeling. Give yourself plenty of time.
So we've been there before, but let's go back to the kitchen, which it's the biggest chunk of financial resource for you. It's probably one of the biggest jobs you're ever going to do, unless you're doing some major reconfiguring of walls and things like that. What's reasonable expectations? Let's just say you have something big coming up in May of this year. Here it is, January. How much time should you plan? Is that even, let's say you got a christening, confirmation, bar mitzvah, whatever it is. Is that enough time to redo a kitchen?
It's not impossible, but with what you said, there's a lot of different aspects that could vary. If you are doing what I would call a refresh, maybe you're doing new cabinets and new products only, then yes, it's possible. But if you are moving walls and doing structural items that require a permit, it would be really hard. It also depends on, like, for example, cabinets. What cabinet line are you going with? Are you doing custom cabinetry or standard stock cabinets that are in stock in your area? Or are they in stock on the other side? You're in New York. If they're in stock in California, I don't know. It's really hard to say with all those different variances. But a refresh, as long as you have all of the products in place a month or two prior, then yes, it's possible. But again, you're going to have to get predominantly stock items.
When we say stock and we refer to kitchen cabinets, are they really stock, or are they mostly prefabbed, but then there's some adjustments made?
Mostly prefabbed. And again, if you're having adjustments, you want to make sure you have the right people in place. You got to have the right team that is experienced in adjusting cabinets. Also, do you want inserts in those cabinets? Do you want some, like a spice pull out on the interior? Those are things to take into consideration too. Kitchens, there's a lot. You got to make sure you have all the plumbing fixtures. You may be able to get the faucet, but can you get the guts? Or do you want like a pot filler? Again, you may be able to get the actual arm of the pot filler, the extension, but can you get the guts, the plumbing stuff itself? Sinks, lights, tile, countertops, so much is going into a kitchen. So again, the more in advance you can time things, the better. When you put a set deadline on it, like, Memorial Day or whatever event is coming up, more times than not, just crap happens and there's nothing you can do. Like kitchens, especially, or bathrooms, you open up a wall, you could find that there was a slow leak somewhere in there. And then you're talking about, do you need mold mitigation? Or if you have an older home again, if you're opening walls, you could be opening Pandora's box. It's really hard. So if you have a set deadline, like a child's graduation, probably best to arrange for things to start happening and planning their junior year instead of their senior year, because it might be too late. And when you put high expectations on people, we're humans, and stuff happens, or that perfect light fixture that you've been dreaming of to put over your kitchen island, it may be discontinued by the time you're ready to order it, or there's none left in stock. Again, how quick will it be in stock again? Sometimes it's taking up to 6 months for items to be restocked, especially if they're super popular or super trendy. You have to be careful with that too.
You make it look easy. So we don't consider all the pieces that go into that. But, to your point, you've had tile. It may not be in stock. There may be a change. We've got 3 boxes, but we need 4. They don't make it anymore. Now what? Like
Right.
the little things like that can really hold up a project, where you can't go to the next step because you're waiting for that box of tile to come in. I'm giving just any example here, but anything can happen. And certainly with that older house, opening up those walls, you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah, or even pulling up old floors. If you've got an older home and people have just been layering floor on top of floor on top of floor, you could go back too far and there's asbestos. So there's a lot of things to take in consideration when you're remodeling. But even this is a good example that we're going through today. We have 2 flooring orders that came in at the same exact time to the same exact dock. The dock told us you have to pick up both orders or none. So all weekend long, I'm struggling to try to figure out, because they're 2 different jobs, 2 different locations, 2 different construction companies. The chances of me having them there at the same exact time are very slim, but I also can't hold myself responsible if something happens when one is picked up and the other one isn't. I don't want whoever's picking them up be responsible either. So it was scrambling to figure out a time that was convenient for both companies to pick it up to be there at the same exact time. And it's even those situations. I needed one of them, had to be picked up today because they're installing tomorrow. So the other one, they're not installing for weeks. So it's, how do I appease both people as well? Or do I put one job behind by doing that? And that is a part of our job as a full service interior design firm. That is my responsibility. So it's sometimes scrambling to the last minute. Just before I got on this podcast with you, I got it settled, but at the same time, it's my responsibility to figure that out. Or if you, the homeowner, thinks you can handle all of that, you can take that on, or you can pay a professional to do the job, and you never know the wiser. Like those 2 homeowners, they don't know what I did today, and I didn't stress them out. I could have easily. I might have had to, but we got it figured out.
As I've shared previously, renovated a backyard, gave me a legit ulcer. And now I'm getting all those things that are coming back, right down to the cement truck going over the sidewalk and caving it in. That was just one little piece of everything else that happened with that. And it worked out okay, but there was so many different pieces, and I'm also working multiple jobs, kids are young, blah, 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 and all of that. It's not worth it doing it yourself. I'm just saying, because that's what we're talking about here. All those things that you're aware of and have dealt with or planned for, we don't think about any of that. In your experience, or maybe even hearing stories, have a wall ever been open and then something found there where stopped the project, or there was a change?
Yes, there was one house that the wall got opened and they did find asbestos, which is a huge expense. And once you find it in one area, you start testing all the areas, especially if you're touching one area, you got to make sure you get the surrounding areas as well. Unfortunately, that entire house had asbestos throughout,
Oof.
first floor and basement. And it was a 30-day stop to the house. Nobody could go in and out unless you were in full gear. The house had to be tented off, and it was extremely expensive, I believe, at that time. And this was, I think, in 2018. It was over $30,000. And those are things that we don't know until we start poking holes, or, like I said, pulling up floor. It can be in the walls, it can be in just the floors. It just depends on what's in there.
Mm. Well, in that asbestos situation, the mold, anything like that, blessing and a curse, because you're living with that. So I guess it was a blessing that the walls were open. I heard a story once from a friend that does contracting. He was on a project where they opened up the walls. This is creepy, by the way. Opened up the walls of an older house that revealed a open area, almost like a little closet that was all boxed off. Inside the closet was a chair. On the chair was a creepy looking doll sitting there. And the workers, maybe a little religious and just very spiritual, they walked off the job. They
Yeah.
weren't doing it. And how did this all end? They just closed up the wall and just sealed it. They didn't touch anything. Creepy. You never know what you're going to find. You never know what you're going
Right.
to find in there. Yeah.
We did have one really great client. We did a full house remodel except in the basement, so the first and second floor. And they wanted to close something into the wall. And yeah, it was just very strange, but they were like, at some point in life, somebody will open this back up and find this. And they thought it was funny. And you get some people that have some cool requests, but you definitely do find some things, newspapers,
Mm.
coins, jewelry. We
Wow.
found jewelry in the wall before, but it's kind of fun when you find stuff like that. It is kind of scary when you find like a box. You don't, who's going to open the box? I don't want to open the box, and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And the
But
whole situation is like it's almost like a time capsule. And I'm not talking just about that box, but you could open up a wall from an older home and find an old newspaper from 1921 or something like that. It's like, oh, what was going on that day? How interesting. It's like a blast to the past.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
that's fun when you find a newspaper. In my opinion, I think that's cool.
I think that's fun.
Yeah.
So, what else should we consider when planning and also planning with enough time?
So there are things like fabrics and tiles, anything with color and pattern. There's things called dye lots. So if you order the tile, for example, like you said, there's only 3 boxes, but you love this tile and there's going to be some more in a month. So you grab those 3 boxes and you're waiting for the next box. You have to keep in mind when you are purchasing from different dye lots, potentially things could look different.
Mm,
And that's like LVT flooring, tile, fabrics, again, anything that has wallpaper. That's a big one because they might change whatever printed out the pattern or the fabric or the colors. They might change the printer heads, the ink. The company might switch from one country to another. So even though they may follow the formula, it still can change. The recipe can change. So you have to be cognizant of that. If you don't get enough tile today and you buy a whole new dye lot later, it could look totally different. And there
wow.
are ways, like with tile and flooring, you can interlace, you can mix it up so it looks intentional. Fabric, that usually doesn't work. Same with wallpaper. It doesn't work like that. So in my opinion, if you don't have enough in the first go around, either resource something totally different or wait for when it's all ready, the full amount that you need. And that's by experience. That has happened before, unfortunately, quite a few times. So, if you don't understand what that means, and I remember working with a woman, we remodeled her bathroom. In her mind, that didn't exist, but I went over it a lot. And when she ordered the extra wallpaper because she wanted to add it somewhere else that we didn't originally plan for, it didn't look at all like the original. So it's either you have to pivot or start all over.
Mm. I would imagine that that's why we rely on somebody like yourself, where you're ordering, you're going to make sure that you order more. Where the rest of us, well, I don't know. They said it's going to be, X amount of square feet. I did a little bit of math, my worst subject, and now I'm one box short,
Yeah.
and that could be problematic.
And even we make mistakes
Yeah.
with ordering. So it happens. Everybody and anybody can do it. But it's also, how do you fix it? If the items haven't been put in place, we would talk with the contractors and know, these are two different dialots. We're going to have to interlace things to make it look intentional, or nobody will know the difference. But if it's with wallpaper and we didn't get enough, then that's on me. I have to go and get more.
And there could be disappointment if somehow you can't get more. And it's not you, that's the manufacturer, the distributor, and all of that.
Yes. So again, planning ahead, making sure you get extra. A lot of people, and you can Google it too online, it'll say 10 to 15% extra. Well,
Mm.
you also, how are you laying the tile? If it's a very weird, like if you're doing a chevron layout and it's a subway tile, because of the angles, there's going to be a lot more cuts, which means you need a lot more extra than you typically would if you just did like a brick pattern or a typical subway layout. So those are also things that your professionals should know. I need 20 or 25% more for extra overage.
I have to tell you, last two houses, no better feeling in the world than going into the basement and finding a box of tile,
Mhm.
especially when somebody drops a pot in the kitchen and cracks a tile, and now you have to have it fixed. So
Yes,
at least, and it could be years later, but just knowing that it's there, it's like, all right, we're good. We got, backup here. Why wouldn't you want 10% more?
right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it seems like a lot of extra um, products, a lot of extra money. But like you said, if something happens, then you have something to back it up. Even in office spaces, when we did a lot of commercial spaces, um, carpet tiles became really popular, which
Mm.
is great. If you spilled coffee on it, all you had to do was peel up that tile and plop in another one. Because as we all know, coffee is not something you can get out pretty easily. So, you know, having that extra, having that spare, because it might not be available. And what do? Leave a giant stain, or do you replace it all when something happens?
So this opens the door to something else here. When you're in those situations, let's say paint.
Mm.
So, pretty savvy nowadays. Sometimes you can even use your phone. Sometimes you can scrape off a chip and then they can shoot it on a camera at the paint store. But keeping these things with you, like the formula for the paint, even making sure it's very clear on that backup can of paint, for scuffs and marks like that. Any thoughts there of things that we should be aware of for the future when things like that happen?
With paint in particular, you can't keep paint forever. It does go bad. So that label, one thing that we do is, like, we just had a full house remodel. I think we've talked about it quite a bit. It was an 1800s home. We have created a binder um,
Mm.
that has a spec sheet for every product. It has a care for sheet for things like any fabrics or carpets, how to care for it, with the paint labels. Right now, because it's still really new, he has a lot of paint cans down in the basement. But what we always suggest is, once you throw those out, take those labels off, and you've got this binder, put it in the binder. Because not only is it good for you, the current homeowner, but what if you pass along this house? What if you sell the furniture? It's actually an added value if you have all the information and you're selling something secondhand. So this binder that we create, I'm not saying every single designer out there does that, but that is something that we offer that I think is very, very important for the homeowner, or if they have a cleaning company that cleans their house monthly or something like that, it's important for them to follow as well.
I actually think it's a selling point when you're showing that house and you say, yeah, by the way, here's a binder with
Yeah.
everything that you need in case you want to make a change or you need to repair something. All the formulas are there, everything is there. That speaks volumes to the person that's considering buying your house, because if you took the time and attention to keep a binder,
Yeah.
you probably took care of the other stuff in the house as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. It does definitely shows that you're caring for it and what you're passing on to the next person. It's been well maintained.
Well maintained. Just thinking those words too as you said them. Yeah, it's that boiler. You got regular maintenance on it. The all the other stuff. You took care of it. It wasn't just well, we're living here until whenever, or also it shows you're not a slob. You're a little bit organized there.
And we do it with our vehicles. We might keep all the papers for them every time you had your oil changed or something
Sure.
like that. Just think about it for your house
Yeah.
too.
Well, there's also things like Carfax that documents a lot of that stuff. I don't have it for a house. you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Any final thoughts on planning?
Again, I can't say it enough. The more time you give yourself to plan, the better it is. It's not only a huge stress saver, you actually can save money because you can get it done right the first time, and make sure that you plan for what you really want rather than rushing just to get something done, and just being okay with it. You should be ecstatic with what you plan out.
Eye opener here today, even on the kitchen level. Again, January, and I mentioned the end of May. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's reasonable. It's not the most amount of time, but you're saying,
To get the full aspect that you really, really, truly want, to love it, I would give yourself more time.
yeah,
Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I feel like you might be
settling.
just
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yep. Tabinteriordesign.com. That's your website. Awesome. As always, thank you for all your knowledge and your insight. You know your stuff, and even that time frame is coming from experience, not just some pie in the sky calendar. Trish, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.